Please. Cool. Thank you again for joining me and our panelists today. I will go to the panelist introductions very shortly. But to start with, we'd love to know, who you are and where you are dialing in today. So please pop in the chat where you are joining us from today, as well as putting in number 1 if you are intending to apply for the Linguistic Institute Fellowship, and number 2 if you have already submitted an applications, and this is just a chance for you to verify whether you are going on the right direction or not. Okay, so while you are doing that, I will also invite you to turn on your video so that you can interact with our panels easier. The webinar today will have 3 main sections. We start a bit with setting the scene, introduce you to the Linguistic Institute if you have not attended the events before. Then we move to talk a lot more about the Linguistic Institute Fellowships, which hopefully you guys will be able to apply for after the conversation today. Application due on December 9th, so you have about 3 weeks and a bit more. And then we'll open the floor for all of you to ask any questions you have for our panelists about the Institute itself, as well as the fellowships available. So without further ado, I'll start with introducing our panels. First of all, we have Ivy Houses from the University of Texas at Arlington. She was a recipient of the Bernard and Julia Block Fellowship at the 2015 LSA Linguistic Institute. Ivy, would you like to say a quick hello?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm getting a pop-up about muting. Okay. Yeah, but like V said, I'm Ivy. I work at the University of Texas, Arlington. I went to the Institute as the Block Fellow in 2015, but I also went to the Institute in 2017, and then I went again last year in 2023 because it's a really valuable experience, and I think most of you are grad students, so it gives you a way to get to know the field outside of your home department, which is really important.
Thank you all. I see a lot of hashtags as Ivy share her experience. Feel free to use our interactive and emoticons because that gives our panelists some feedback that you are connecting with the content. Thank you. And secondly, I'd like to introduce you to Troy Messick. He is from Rutgers University. He's also a recipient of the Bernard and Julia Block Fellowship at the 2013 Linguistic Institute. Over to you, Troy.
Yeah. Hello from New Jersey. Yep. Kind of a similar experience to Ivy. I was able to go to the LSA Summer Institute in 2013, and I've been able to go for short times to some other institutes, but not fully for the entire summer after that. But I've always enjoyed my time there, and it was really a great experience for me as a young graduate student. And I'm hoping that this is helpful for all of you, and happy to answer any questions you may have about the application process or the institute itself. So.
Thank you, Troy. And last but not least, we have Voya Kapasinski from the University of Oregon, and he's also one of the, I think 3 or 2 co-directors of the 2025 LSA Linguistic Institute. So he'll be the best person to tell you the highlights of the programs and what you should be looking for. Over to you, Voya.
Thank you. And I also went to 3 LSA institutes as a student, and then 2 as a faculty member. So I've also really, really enjoyed them, and am happy to be co-directing this one. So this year, the program, I'm quite excited about the lineup. We have a lot of really interesting faculty from all over the world. In Oregon, it's 11 a.m. So it's going to be 5 weeks of classes. The classes are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. There's 2 terms, so the terms switch on July 23rd. You can come for 2.5 weeks from July 7th to 22nd, or from July 24th through August 8th, or you can come for the whole 5 weeks. Some of the classes will run the whole 5 weeks, and some will run just half. There's a lot of courses. You can see the program at the link that I just posted. Actually, maybe I should share. Should I?
Go
Can I
ahead
share?
and share your screen, Goya. I think it'll
Yeah.
be useful. Thank you.
So yeah, so here's our website, and the theme is language and use. We have a lot of courses on kind of usage-based approaches to linguistics and language acquisition. We have a lot of courses on typology. We have a lot of courses on learning, and also on morphosyntactic description and fieldwork. Quite a few in that area are on languages of the Americas, so both in the Northwest and in South America, which is a focus of one of our co-directors, Spike Gilday. There's also some work on Trans-Himalayan and Trans-Himalayan languages, and which is another area where we have faculty expertise here at Oregon. We have, so if you go to this website and you go to the courses tab, then you can select here, for example, all the courses that we might have on, I don't know, typology, and then you will see them here, right? So there's quite a bit there, all the courses on learning, and so on. And if you click on one of these, then you will see a little bit about each instructor and their background and the course itself. So there's quite a lot also on computational modeling and cognitive science as well. There is a lot of statistical expertise. We have, I think, almost all the authors of statistics textbooks for linguists attending, although most of them are not teaching statistics classes. It's funny how that goes. But we have a lot of expertise in that area as well. Oh, this is not entirely up to date. Right. Then on Wednesdays we'll have workshops and tutorials that are kind of more applied. Those are not on the website yet. Those are the deadline for submitting those is December 1st. So that is something that is coming later. I already am thinking that we will have some workshops on statistics, some workshops on programming tools that people use, like Prot. We have Paul Bursma, the inventor of Prot, coming, so he'd be an ideal person to talk about that, for example, and some on linguistics and industry and that sort of thing. Co-located conferences on weekends. We have a number of conferences that are not organized by us for the most part, but are going to take place during the Institute. And as an Institute participant, you can go to them for free. These are the conferences that we're having. So we have the first iteration of usage-based approaches to phonology, that hopefully will become an biennial conference. We have a couple conferences on kind of more field-related topics like snail and Himalayan Languages Symposium and community-based sociolinguistics. We have some computational cognitive type conferences, like this conference on dynamical models for speech, or this workshop we're doing on abstract, combining abstract and item-specific knowledge, or the Society for Computation and Linguistics, and some also sociolinguistics related things. So linguistics in the criminal justice system and community-based sociolinguistics. And these kind of also align with the major themes of the Institute this year, including sort of the cognitive science of language, variation and change, and computational methods. All right. There anything else? Any questions people have?
For that, of course, very quickly, in case if any of our attendees have any questions on the program in particular. Okay, you can either pop your question in the chat, or again, towards the end of the conversations, we'll open the floor so that you can unmute yourself and ask your question verbally as well. But before we move to the next sessions of these conversations, can I invite Ivy and Troy to share your experience attending these events as a student in the past? And I'm most interested in, what's your fondest memories of any linguistic institute you attended in the past as a student? So who would like to go first? Ivy?
I can go first, sure. Yeah, I think one thing that I'll just kind of elaborate on what I said before, how like the Institute gives you more time than just a regular conference to get to know people outside of your home department. And I think like a lot of my like maybe fondest memories of the Institute are not necessarily like in class, so to speak. It's the kind of things that happen around the like, phonology hour at the bar, or like going to see a Broadway show in Chicago with a bunch of new linguist friends. And I think these sorts of things like or playing games in the dorms with with other students. And those sorts of things were like really beneficial for just like existing in the field socially as well. Like it's always really hard to go to conferences and like not know people, and you're like at the coffee hour and you're like, I don't know anyone here. And going to the institute just like totally increased the number of people that I knew in the field exponentially. And I think that the social benefit of going to the institute is, very valuable, maybe depending on who you are, equally or even more valuable than the sort of academic benefit, which is also very, very important.
Yeah, I have a very similar experience. Like growing up, I never got to go to summer camp, but I saw a lot of movies about summer camp, and it always seemed really fun. And then the LSA Summer Institute was kind of my wanted time. I got to kind of experience the summer camp kind of hijinks and just kind of fun you get to have being together with a group of linguists. So yeah, really the my fondest moments are the kind of the social aspects of the Summer Institute. Being able to kind of grab a coffee with a group of people and kind of just discuss where you are in graduate school, and uh what your research is, and kind of go from there. So I definitely developed kind of lifelong friendships and collaborations with people that I met at the institute. And that's the what will always stick out to me, is kind of like that kind of fun social aspect, that summer camp aspect of the institute that you don't really get really anywhere else in conferences or things like that. So
But it keeps like paying itself forward at conferences. Like I was at the LabFon conference this past summer in Seoul, and there were a couple other professors that I met back when I was a grad student at the institute 10 years ago. Um, and you know, like some people I collaborated with, I've seen them, but other people was like, we met once at the Institute and this is the first time I'm seeing them since then. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if you remember me. And they're like, of course I remember. We met at the Institute. And so, you know, even that just kind of broadening your network in the field, for me, it's really just kept paying itself forward with professional connections. It's been really valuable.
Thank you, Ivy and Troy. Boya?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've met tons of people at the institutes, and I'm not the most social person. And you know, I think most people I know in the field I met through the institutes, and in one way or the other. Um, and you know, also the coursework for me was really sort of formative in the sort of work that I do. Like the 2005 Institute was basically what got me into acquisition and miniature artificial languages. And you know, I've been excited about these topics for 20 years now. You know, so it's something that I think can be really influential on the direction of your research as well.
So can we unpack on that quickly, Boya, the impact of attending the Linguistic Institute on your career and your research? Because Sophia posed a question here, how significant are publications regarding the application process for fellowships? And Troy, I think we have another conversations on the sides about how your attendance of the Linguistic Institute help you to shape and impact your career and research moving forward. So do you guys have any comment on this before we move to the next agenda item?
I mean, the publication question is, I think, more maybe about like how we're going to be selecting people for the fellowships. And I think that really varies on where you are in your career. So if you are an undergraduate or an early graduate student, then we really downweigh the publications. If you are, you know, a late year graduate student, like you're finishing up a PhD, then yes, publications are really important. For me at least, when I'm looking at the applications. Yeah, I first attended the institute when I was starting graduate school, so I was in between undergrad and grad, and I got a fellowship for it. So I guess at that point, you know, it did not completely rely on publications also. So I think you can get a fellowship if you know, without publications.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I'm pretty sure I didn't have any publications. I might have had like a proceedings paper from a conference, but I definitely didn't have any journal articles when I got my fellowship. I got my fellowship like 1 to 2 years into grad school. So I think I was just finishing my like qualifying paper period. So it really benefited me to be able to like choose a dissertation topic and to again have a broader perspective than just your home department. So that's how it helped me, kind of similar to Volya, and like forming my research and getting me interested into the topics that I was interested in. I lucked out. There were like exactly the courses that I needed that year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was in a similar boat to Ivy. I had maybe one or two proceedings papers. I was in my second year of graduate school. So yeah, I was so I didn't have a journal article at the time. I know that, and I think I maybe had one or two proceedings papers. Uh, in terms of classes, and so I was kind of distracted by kind of the fun social aspect of the institute, but I did what I did enjoy about the institute and what I really what I liked a lot about it was that I was able to take classes that I probably wouldn't be able to take at my home department. So I remember taking like corpus linguistics in the institute, which wasn't a course that was offered. Um, in my linguistics department. I remember taking like a prosody, syntax prosody interface course that I wouldn't be able to take otherwise. So that was really beneficial. So I was able to kind of broaden my research abilities by taking these courses, and it really helped, yeah, with doing the dissertation, doing my qualifying papers and things like that. So it was definitely, in addition to kind of the social benefits, it was definitely intellectually beneficial as well. So.
Thanks all for that remark. Before we move to the fellowship programs, I want to address Pei's questions in the chat. So I'd like to start with Boya first on this one. Now, he's asked how important is this fellowship for a grad student who is looking not to be in academia after graduate school. So looking at the program that you have on offer in 2025, are there a lot of content for linguistics beyond academia on the program?
So in terms of coursework, I know that there's some faculty that are coming that used to that left academia and came back. Like Fermin Moscoso del Prado Martin, for example, was at a computational linguistics company for a few years. I do think that the program is more oriented towards, and people in academia, and generally speaking, I think the institutes are probably more helpful for people who are staying in academia, because you build up this giant network of people, within academia. But there are quite a few computational courses on the program, so those are going to be helpful as if you are going outside of academia, as well as stats courses. And on Wednesdays, we're planning quite a few workshops, some of which are going to be more industry oriented. So for example, we are thinking of doing a shared task during each of the halves of the institute, where people would work on computational problems that we would like. We are trying to reach out to industry for. And then the Society for Computation and Linguistics is of course a major computational linguistics conference that is going to happen during the institute, and would be very relevant for people who want to go into the tech industry.
Thank you. Ivy and Troy, do you have any remarks on this before we move on?
I know that in previous years there have been lots of like working groups and sort of extracurricular activities around non-academic opportunities. So I think that people that I know that have pursued that, and I myself have even applied for non-academic jobs, and I found that what I experienced at the Institute was helpful.
Yeah, I think there are certain benefits that if you weren't thinking about going into academia from the institute, or again, it might be more social. So there's probably there will be other students that don't get academic jobs or will end up in industry. And just having those connections can be, I think, beneficial. Having those connections early can be beneficial to you. So, yeah.
So much
Yeah, and definitely there are people who are in academia also who are coming, like we have people from Amazon, for example, who are, co-teaching things. So there's some opportunities for networking with people who are in the industry for sure.
Thank you so much for those remarks. I'd like to move our conversations to the next part, and in this next part, I will start sharing my screen, because I know that there are a lot of questions in the chat so far, as well as in the registrations about the fellowship options that we have on offer this year. So I will walk through during this part of the conversation, walk through with you very quickly all of the options available. Now you are seeing on the screen, and I've just popped the link in the chat, all of the fellowships available for you to review this year. Now there are 8 categories of fellowships available for you to have a look. There are 12 for the General Institute Fellowship, and basically that gives you the tuition to support your attendance at the event. And then from fellowship number 2 until fellowship number 8, these are different names fellowship that are available for you depending on your current situations, where you are applying from, as well as your connections with linguistic in general. So I encourage you to, as you prepare for your applications, read through these narratives carefully to know whether or not you are eligible for those. Now, if we are looking at important links, this will give you everything that you need to know about the program. So you can look at the past recipient and you'll see Ivy, Troy, and Moya's names on there as our previous recipients. You can also view and download the PDF version of the application form so that you know what we are looking for, so that you can start preparing for your applications before you actually going on the online system to start popping in your responses. You can look at the list of eligibility, and I know that a lot of you have some of these in the chat that have responded so far, and we can go through a few of them. You can also look at the terms and conditions as well as the FAQ. Now, I encourage you to explore this link and read this material carefully, because if you have a questions before putting in your application together or while preparing for your application, it is very likely that you will find a response on these pages. Now, there are a couple of questions in the chat so far about citizenship. Rest assured that there is no requirements of citizenships as you apply for these fellowships. There are a couple of named fellowship that tied in particular with a specific citizenship. So again, please read through the narrative to know which one you are eligible for. There was a questions about general requirements. So let's go to the eligibility page. Now, this is the list of requirements. By default, if you are an LSA student member, if you can apply for 4 weeks of the institute, and if you have not received a fellowship previously, then by default you are on eligible for the General Linguistic Fellowship, and there are 12 available for you, and that fellowship will provide you with tuition to attend the event. As you go through the rest of the eligibility, you can start having a better sense of what other named fellowship that you are eligible for. So that's the first one. Now, if you look at the application form, so this is what I mentioned earlier. This is the PDF of our form. To give you a better sense of all of the material, all of the responses we are asking for, so that you can prepare them before you go to our online system. I want to show you very quick. So basically what I want to say is as you put through your applications, you will slowly walk through different questions, and the system will tell you whether or not you are eligible for a specific named fellowship. So that gives you, for example, question 33, it asks you if you select either of the first or the second statement, then you are eligible for the Charles Fillmore Student Fellowship. And as you select the correspondence, we will capture you as applying for both the General Fellowship and the named fellowship that you are eligible for. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. So that's about eligibility. I see another questions, and we talk about the 4 weeks attendance. I'm just going through your list of questions before I miss them. The asterisk next to 2025, that is just a typo that I'll remove after this. It doesn't have any significant meaning, so I apologize for the confusions. The reference letter, yes, is due at the same time as the application. So the applications are due on December 9th, the same as the letter. So if you have already put in your applications, I will start contacting the names of your referees this week and give them instructions on how they can submit your application, how they can submit the letter of recommendations for you. So be sure, as you put in your application, be sure to let your referee know to watch out for that email, which again will come out this week. All right, I will stop sharing my screen. But again, if you go to this page to start with, the link's already in the chat. But in case if you go to the LSA website, you can navigate to that page by going to under Events, Linguistic Institute, and Linguistic Institute Fellowships. So this is how you can get to this page, and this is how you can find all of the important links so that you can prepare for your applications. Again, application closed on December 9th at midnight, regardless of where you are on Earth. And we do not extend applications, period. So I will pause the screen sharings and keep the questions coming in. We'll address them as we go. Otherwise, again, we'll open the floor for questions at the end. But before we get to Q&A, I do want to, because we have 3 previous recipients of these fellowships in the past, I do want to give them an opportunity to share with you their top tips on how they prepared their applications in the past. So can I start with Ivy first and then Troy? Over to you guys.
Sure. I think I'm giving these tips based more on my experience reviewing them recently than my experience writing it. But I think the biggest tip that I can give is to work with a faculty mentor. To not do the application like in isolation, to get feedback from a mentor about what you're writing. I think that's huge. And also to be as specific as possible and to write sort of more about linguistics and your involvement in the field. And for some of the, I know for some of the named fellowships, like I think the block fellowship is sometimes treated this way, that the committee is looking for someone who is, I think it says like the most promising applicant. And I think promising to some reviewers means not only like academically promising, but also someone who will sort of take full advantage of the like professional networking that the Institute has to offer. So there is that the academic stuff, but also just I think being specific about your interests and the courses and that you would be a good fit for this institute. That would be my top advice. And we can talk about that more too when we get to the reviewer questions.
Yeah, I think another kind of building off of that, another aspect that I look for and I think helped me when I was applying was demonstrating how the Institute can kind of fill in gaps in your education that you wouldn't otherwise be able to fill. So like I was saying, I was able to take courses that I wouldn't be able to take at my home department when I was a graduate student. So being specific about that, I think also is really helpful for reviewers. And yeah, I think getting as many people to look at it, including a faculty advisor, including other people applying to get feedback. And just being, very specific and like, these are the courses I want to take. This is why I want to take them. And if, if it is like the only way you would be exposed to this type of linguistics, then mention that, because I do think that that is important to get across to the reviewers.
Yeah, I agree about that. I also am, as a reviewer, I do kind of look at the fellowships and also like how much the interests of the student and what they're doing are matching in some ways, to the person that the fellowship is named for, right? So things like, is this person working on historical linguistics, or are they, what are how do they connect to sort of the intent of the fellowship?
Thanks, Voyas. I think it's a good segue to move to the reviewer's perspective of these conversations. And I'm sure as our attendees listening to your insight, there will be a lot more questions coming out. But as a reviewers, I know I will touch slightly on this. What are you guys looking for as you go through this application?
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for, and I know Volya mentioned this before everybody came in, that like we can only speak for ourselves as reviewers. Like we have a whole committee of reviewers that, might have slightly different priorities than us, and we were going to take all the scores together. But I think one of the things that I'm looking for is really like, do you have defined interest? Do you know what you're going to get out of the institute? And are you able to connect those things together? For me, like, I'm not looking to rate highly necessarily the most, like, I don't want to say like academically accomplished, but the people with like the most publications and from like the shiniest school, that's not necessarily who I'm looking to give the highest rating. Now sometimes those people do get high ratings, but that's more of what I'm looking for is like, do you have defined interests? Have you explained how the institute is going to help you in those interests? As specifically as possible. That's really where I'm giving my highest ratings.
Yeah, the review process is a bit of there is like a subjective aspect to it. Uh, uh, so reviewers do weight things differently from one another. But I am kind of in agreement with Ivy that I don't necessarily I do think things like publications for the rank you're at. So like Volia mentioned, like we don't like expect tons of publications for undergraduate students or even early career graduate students. But it does, it won't hurt, I guess. And I do think that more important than this is having kind of a narrative of how the institute is going to, how it fits into your kind of academic career plan, and giving kind of specific ways that you foresee the institute kind of aiding in your career development. So, yeah, connecting what you'll learn at the institute to how you will grow as a linguist down the road in the future.
Oh yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I agree. I mean, I think, yeah, it's basically how does the institute fit into your career plans, whatever they are? What are your interests and how do they match the courses that you're planning to take? And how is the institute contributing something that you couldn't get elsewhere? I think are all really important things to address in your statement. Things like publications, you either have them or you don't have them, and we can tell from your CV, right? So in your statement, basically you can focus on what the institute is going to do for you, and why it's important for you specifically to go to the institute.
Thank you all.
Can I add something I forgot? One thing that I think is also important is to think about like what you would be bringing to the institute, not just what the institute would bring to you. So if you have like a perspective or an experience that is going to bring something new to the institute and to the courses that you're in, that's unique, that would also be something to highlight. And I'll give like a concrete example here. So I was working with a student last institute who was in a speech and hearing science department, and she was like looking to come to the institute to learn more about linguistics. And I was like, that's really a benefit to everyone else to have someone who has this other experience being in the classes. So if you have something, some kind of experience qualification that you think would be unique, I would play that up in your application.
That's
Yeah,
great.
especially something that's not obvious, right? That like yeah, publications and grades, we can tell without you talking about them, but yeah, something like that would be really nice to hear.
Roy, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we covered what I look for, I guess, in the application. Yeah, and I liked Ivy's addendum that, yeah, trying to highlight what makes you a unique applicant in a kind of non-obvious way. So, um, going beyond what's on your CV to kind of explain why you fit. So I guess like, yeah, the kind of fit goes both ways. How the institute can benefit you, but also how you can bring something beneficial to the institute by your being there. So yeah, I think both of those things play a very important role in reviewing these types of applications.
Thank you. I want to wrap this session up before we open the floor for questions. So what I was hearing so far is obvious. What I was hearing so far from the panelists is that we should work with a student. We should work with a mentor during our application process. And as part of our conversation with our mentors, as we know where we want to go next in our career, put down in the applications how the attending the Linguistic Institute will benefit our career moving forward. And then also don't forget to put in what values we can add while attending the event so that we know that there are reciprocal as you're attending the events. And I think that's the aspect that can elevate your experience and expanding your network as you add value and contribute to the programs. Thank you so much for that. There are a couple of questions in the chat, in particularly about the due date of the letters of recommendations, and I acknowledge that was my typos and I put the PDF together. All of the letters of recommendations is due the same time as the applications, which is midnight of December 9th. So I'll fix that after these conversations. And hopefully I have addressed all of the questions in the chat so far, but does anyone has any other questions that they want to raise for the committees? Have you guys start working on the applications? Have you found any queries, any obstacles that prevent you from completing the applications? Do you have any doubts? Do you need any directions on how to complete your applications? Okay. It seems like the panelist does a great job of giving you the information, so we don't need to do the rest of the part. All right, I will pop in my email address in the chat in case if you have any questions as you put in the application. Feel free to send your queries to us. I see a hand raised, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Hi, it's me. Sorry, it's okay. I'm just wondering how competitive are these fellowships? Sorry.
Good question. So, I can tell you there were over 200 applications submitted in the previous Linguistic Institute. It was 2 years ago, and we were able to provide 19 fellowships in total. So I'll do a quick math. Is it like 1 to every 20?
19, it's almost, yeah, a little less than 10%.
A little less than 10%. So To me, that's very competitive.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I was like, just to get in before we wrap up, like these are really competitive and like we are the year that I did this as a reviewer, I was like, there's so many good students that we want to send to the institute. There's so many. And like we only have those 19 fellowships to give out. So like if you don't get one, then like don't take it as some sort of like assessment of who you are as a linguist or how good you are. Um, because there's just so many deserving students and not enough fellowships. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of people applying for these and a limited number of them.
And I think this is why it's important if you guys can put in what values can you add as part of your experience. That will give you an advantage point compared to the rest of the applications. Sean.
Hello, thank you all for putting this on. It's super informative. I'm curious specifically for the Block Fellowship. I know in the past it's been associated with kind of most promising applicant. I also know, at least for this year's application, preference is given to Indigenous scholars or those associated with historically U.S. affiliated Pacific. If we don't fit into those boxes but want to be considered, there's that extra 100-word box associated with the Block Scholarship we're supposed to fill out. Do you have any guidance for how to fill that out if we don't check those boxes? In terms of, is it how we're the most promising applicant? Should we not fill out that box if we don't check those boxes, or just any advice you have there? And thank you.
I would fill out the box. It may be also like how do you connect to Block's work? Maybe there's other ways, maybe like you work on idiolects that Block is famous for introducing. So I mean there could be less obvious ways in which somebody might be a great fit for the fellowship. But realistically, of course, we are supposed to give preference in that case, and given how competitive it is, if we have several people who meet that requirement, then probably it'll go to one of those people.
Certainly, as it should. Thank you.
Ivy and Troy, I know that you received this fellowship in the past. Do you have any insight for Sean and others?
So the requirements for the block and also the kind of things associated have changed since I was awarded it. So I think Ivy too. So the block fellowship also used to come with a
service responsibility.
Or service responsibility on the LSA executive committee, which no longer is the case. So I remember when I was applying, there was kind of like a part of the application that was like discussing, why you wanted to be also part of the LSA executive committee and kind of how you see yourself kind of, bringing the field forward. And I think, adding that to an application could potentially make it stronger, but it's not necessarily part of that process anymore. So my personal experience is a bit outdated when it comes to applying for this particular fellowship, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Me and Troy got the Block Fellowship in kind of a different era of the Block. And I think some of the requirements just changed like last year, really. So those have been updated fairly recently. So I think this cycle, the last one to some extent, but this cycle too is a bit new for all of us, including the reviewers, with the sort of new requirements and elements of it. Yeah.
Thank you. And I saw Louise have a hand up.
Hello, yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, go for it.
Gotcha. Yeah. In terms of, talking about what other perspectives and experiences we can bring, are we also able to talk about perhaps what service-like components we'd bring in terms of, I don't know, volunteering, uh, workshops that we would be able to give like on our own time? Is that something that could also be uh, talked about in the sense of, I don't know, one that I could see myself giving at least because I'm a grad student is applying to grad school and selecting a mentor because I've done a few of those and I'm not sure what the ratio of undergrads to grad students are that attend the Linguistic Institute, but I'd infer that for a few select, some of them would like to attend grad school. And I know delving into grad school, let alone applying and selecting, is quite daunting. So could that be something that could also be talked about?
I can try to go for this first. And then y'all can tell me if you agree. So I think in the application, it's important to focus on like experience that you have related to this. So like if you've given 3 workshops at your home institution on applying to grad school, then like that's definitely relevant to your application. It shows you're really engaged in the field. You're wanting to mentor younger students. I would like definitely put that in your application. Um, and then I think it'll, if you have that, it'll be clear to the reviewers that like, oh, this person has these skills and like could use them, and you could talk about that as something I can bring to the institute as my expertise in mentoring younger
Mhm.
students or doing these service opportunities, for example. Like what I
Gotcha.
wouldn't do is just be like, I would love to give a workshop on whatever topic. If you don't have any experience like giving workshops on that topic, that's not really something I think that the reviewers are looking for, is for the students to offer workshops. We're looking for them to take the courses primarily. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah. I don't know what do Troy and Volia think about that?
Yeah, I think as reviewers, we're trying to kind of, suss out what is kind of like real and substantial that the applicant could potentially bring to the institute. So like Ivy said, if you have experience doing these types of workshops or doing this type of mentorship, then definitely uh, mention that. But if it's something that you don't have, you haven't done before, and you're just kind of promising that you'll do it, then yeah, as a reviewer, you might be a little bit more suspicious if, okay, is this person actually doing that, or is this person just saying something that kind of sounds nice on an application? So anything that say that you'll bring to the application or bring to the institute, um, uh, you want to try to like back that up with previous experiences, uh, or maybe your letter writers can back that up for you. But you do want to kind of have some um, previous experience of doing this, so it looks more substantial and real to the reviewers.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And with this in mind, what is the ratio of like graduate students that attend the institute to undergraduate students, just to get a better, feel of, well, the demographics per se?
I would guess it's about 80% graduate.
80?
Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody have the actual stats on that? I was gonna guess
I
75,
think
25, but that's just a guess.
I think I've seen 80-20 on one of the reports from the previous institutes.
Okay.
Please. I
I did want to say that, if you have ideas for workshops and kind of relevant experience or expertise, then, we do have a call out for Wednesday workshops. So, if that is something that you're interested in doing, then, I would use that call. It's not going to necessarily help you with the application for the fellowship, but it would look great on your CV afterwards that you've given, a workshop if you end up being selected. I'll paste the call in here.
Thank you. Grace Scott and Minu also ask the questions. If you have reviewed for journals before, is that an advantage? And it is something that an applicant should add to the application?
So like I tried to respond to that in the chat. Like I was saying, it's definitely something you should put on your CV and include as part of your kind of professional service. It might be slightly beneficial, but I don't think it will be a huge deciding factor in these types of applications.
Thank you. Louise, I see that your hand's still up. Do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of related to the CV. To what extent is it relevant to put or not put what classes we've, for grad students at least, or even undergrads, TA'd or been the instructor of record? Is it that relevant, or should the CV be tailored a little bit more towards research and service rather than the teaching we've done, or all three per se?
Can someone remind me, is there a page limit on the CV?
I do want to, before we move on, mention that we don't ask for CV uploaded to.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
Oh,
transcript, and we ask the applicants to put in descriptions and
I see.
answers to our questions, but we do not ask for a CV. So that we don't confuse you guys.
Sorry.
Sorry, I think this has changed since I got this fellowships many years ago. So yeah, sorry for misleading you.
I mean, I would say just then to answer the question about like, do we include stuff about your teaching experience? I think it would be the same for like, do you include stuff about your service experience? Like, is it fitting in your narrative about why you're a good fit for the Institute? And I think that it's not just your research or your coursework that might make you a good fit for the Institute. It might be your service experience. It might be your journal reviewing. It might be your TAing. It might be your volunteer experience. It might be your fieldwork experience. It might be the second major that you got as an undergrad. There's all sorts of things that might fit this narrative that you're trying to craft about yourself and why you're a good fit for the Institute. And I think anything could potentially be related to that.
Thank you for that. We are at the bottom of the hours. Is there any last minute questions before we close down the conversation today?
Yeah, maybe really quickly, just to be clear, with regards to the lack of a CV upload, there's a box for listing publications and conference presentations, but anything else that would normally go on a CV, any teaching, any service, anything that's not like just a transcript from education, all of that needs to somehow go in either the 300 words on experience with linguistics or the 500-word statement of purpose. There's nowhere else we can make that known. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I will make the recording available and email to you sometime this week. Again, if you have any other questions after reviewing the webinars or recording, please email me and I'll get back to you accordingly. Thank you to panelists for spending the last hours with us and sharing your insights and experience. To the rest of the attendees, if you are applying, good luck. Let me know if I can be at help. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you at the University of Oregon next year. Okay. Have a lovely afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Good luck.
Bye.
Bye,
Yeah,
good luck.